I hope and pray that this video will help some people who have been wrongfully convicted by the Queens County DA's office. Like myself, I was wrongfully convicted. I always claim or maintain my innocence. However, I was still prosecuted and I was still convicted. In many cases, when at the end you prove through evidence that there was some wrongdoing by the prosecutors or by the police, or maybe that the victims or the complainants, whoever's accusing you, lie, the courts at the end, when they made the decision to finally uh, dismiss your indictment, what they say is there were a lot of inconsistencies in the case. There were many inconsistencies in the case. However, those inconsistencies were presented at trial, and your defense attorney didn't do anything about it. Maybe there were documents that were available to your defense attorney, but he never used those documents to try to help you. And that's it. Once you don't use them and you fail to challenge those testimonies that were brought against you, and you don't use those documents to just challenge the fact that the witness may be saying something other than what they said in the beginning, that goes out the window. You don't have a chance to actually argue that at the appellate courts. When you file your appeal, there's nothing you can do about it. And in my case, this is exactly what happened. The documents that were presented in the beginning, they actually contradict what they said at trial. However, the prosecutors misled the courts and manipulated the evidence just to try to influence the jury. I inflame the bias of the jury against me at the time. Now, this happens actually starting in 1997, and I was arrested in 1998. And just to show you delicate, how delicate it may be, or how sensitive it is when prosecutors lie about cases and they try to implicate innocent people in cases. But being that they are prosecutors, a lot of people believe them because they assume that DAs don't lie. But I'm going to show you here that the DAs in my case, they lie. They fabricated evidence. They produced the evidence. And one of the pieces of evidence that they mentioned the most in this case, although it was never presented to the jury, it was published in the media. It was actually brought to the attention of the court in front of me, in front of the judge, in front of my defense attorney who didn't do anything about it, always claiming that I was going to win the case based on other evidence. I was convicted of a horrible crime and I wanted to fight. When you are convicted of a crime and you know, yeah, that you are innocent, you fight. I didn't know how to do it. I never experienced anything like this in the past. And a lot of times we don't know the ins and outs of the law and how the law plays out in a court and what the judges are looking at. And sometimes judges, not every one of them, are biased against some people. And they listen to prosecutors more than they would a defense attorney. But let me show you just a case here that just came out not too long ago of a prosecutor from New York who lied about some cases. She was misleading the court and she lied about some cases, and she had to resign. This is her right here. You see on top that it says that she had to resign, and it says why she had to resign in this article. I mean, you can screenshot it, you can take this for whatever it is, but in this case, what happened was that the prosecutor or the court held in their decision that the prosecutor cited 6 cases that did not exist, 2 statutes quoted that do not contain the quote cited by the prosecutor, 3 cases quoted that do not contain the quote cited by the prosecutor. And this is on a petition that she filed. And she's citing cases, she's citing case law to try to mislead the court, lying to the court, blatantly lying to the court about what she's saying in order to support her petition. Now, I'm going forward. 2 statutes cited by this prosecutor that do not represent the principles for which they were cited. She also cited 2 cases that do not represent the principle for which they were cited. And that was enough. Her lies and the misrepresentation of those cases were enough for her to resign. And in my case, not only did they lie, but they also fabricated evidence and planted one piece of evidence. And they later used that one piece of evidence. And like I said, although this piece of evidence was not presented to the jury, they basically used this piece of evidence in the newspapers, in all major or legacy papers like the New York Post, the Newsday, the New York Times, the Daily News, and including a Queens County local newspaper known by the city. They told the newspapers what they wanted to tell the newspapers, what they wanted the newspapers to publish, and everything that they lied about came against me. Now, the court, anyway, let me just go back. The court in the Southern District of New York, that's what I'm trying to say. The Southern District of New York in July 23, 2024, decided that the list of the prosecutors from the Queens County DA's office must be made public to everyone to see, because they have been trying to actually get the courts to deny any publicity of any findings, because they law professors filed grievances, they filed complaints against 23 prosecutors. I got a list of 21 prosecutors, and this is the ruling of the court, and this is coming from the Southern District of New York. You see what it says? Landmark court ruling for transparency. And this is what they do. Prosecutors, they do this over and over and over again. And this was done by Judge Victor Marrero. Victor Marrero from the Southern District of New York. He decided to leave these cases or allow these cases to be viewed by the public. The public is entitled to see these cases. But now what brought me to my case after fighting for so many years, when I came home 20 years later, was an article about a case where convictions were overturned and 3 men were wrongfully convicted. And it so happens that the prosecutors in this case were from Queens. And I saw this on December 12th, 2021, in one of the New York papers. And this is what they say. If you look at this, this is what they said. New York pays 17 million in three Queens wrongful conviction cases, right? Amid fears about prosecutor misconduct. Some people get framed. Some people get framed. That is amazing that they would say something like that, right? And this is the New York Journal talking about other cases, especially this judge here from Queens, Judge Sayas. He was the one that actually made the decision to release these guys and dismiss their indictments. And this is what came out of the newspaper. See, this mind boggling. This is mind boggling. Now, I'm going to move on to show you the name of the prosecutor in my case. And that's the name that actually brought me to do some research in Google to find out whether the DA that handled my case was also part of the list, or maybe somehow there was some complaints filed against him for misconduct. Because this guy here, if he lied about my case, maybe he did it before. And it so happens that just going through Google, a lot of times a simple Google search will get you far. And that's exactly what I did. So, what happens after my Google search? I found that the prosecutor in my case, his name is Kenneth Applebaum. ADA Kenneth Applebaum was the subject of a complaint or a grievance that was filed in the court because of his corrupt or criminal acts perpetrated against two people. Here they only citing two cases, but they have other things against him. But this is the list of the grievances that were filed against these prosecutors. If you notice, I highlighted in many of these pieces of paper, you're going to see the highlights talking about them and talking about the cases. And in this list here, he's actually the subject of the complaint based on two cases. In one of the cases, he withheld evidence. He lied to the court, blatantly lied to the court, and he had the evidence. He had knowledge of the evidence, but he failed to surrender that evidence to the defense attorney. In the other case, he was trying to show before the grand jury by just saying it that the man or the accused was actually guilty. And the court wasn't going for this. And this man challenged his grand jury hearing. And he so happened to be an assemblyman from Queens named Gallagher. And this man was accused of essaying someone, and Kenneth Applebaum disregarded or broke every disciplinary whatever they is hold against him by the American Bar Association. He violated every single law or every single policy just to prosecute this man. And for what? And I found a picture of what he looks like today, Kenneth Applebaum. He might not look like that, but this is the picture that I found. And then I bump into this. This is beautiful. This is the best thing so far because it actually says many things about him. And he says, here are a few of the criminal acts employed by the attorney of the Queens County DA's office, Kenneth Applebaum. And he did this. He fabricated evidence. He attempted to discredit a United States Marine. He threatened the career of a New York City public school teacher and mother, abusively harassed a medical doctor. He coached a 16-year-old to lie in court. He tarnished the career of an NYPD officer, distorted testimony, withheld crucial evidence from defense. He threatened another minor with prison time for speaking the truth. They don't care about the truth. Listen, innocence or guilt doesn't really matter when it comes to a case. Now, in my case, and this is where it gets interesting, they use a book that they mention many times, over and over and over again. And this is a very difficult case where there was actually evidence that they could use for DNA, and the DNA evidence or whatever they actually conducted on those tests never matched my DNA. However, they still manipulated evidence and they did many things to try to connect me to that evidence, but it was all inconclusive at the end. And what happens is a book, and I'm going to take it here, or I'm going to take you here to the point where the judge actually mentions this thing for the first time in court because it was ongoing. The DA in this case, not Kenneth Applebaum, because Kenneth Applebaum, let me make this clear. Kenneth Applebaum was the one that initiated the investigation in my case. He initiated the steps to get to my arrest, and he planted evidence of a book in my van, and he fabricated the evidence, and he had another prosecutor lie. He conspired with another prosecutor to lie about the contents of the book, the real story in the book. And the book was brought before the court. However, my attorney said that the book wasn't going to, he actually requested that the court would not allow the book to be introduced as evidence because I wasn't going to testify. And the main thing about the book was actually to prejudice me before everybody else, the public and everybody else in the court, including the jury and the complainant, who I believe didn't know exactly the story or the true story in this book. However, they still introduced the book, but not as evidence at the trial. They just introduced it to the court to try to argue or try to convince the court that they should introduce this book, mainly during the time when Kenneth Applebaum, ADA Kenneth Applebaum, decided to sit to testify against me in order to use this book. And the judge is actually talking about the first time when he spoke about this book. And he's saying, if you notice, this is what he's saying here. And I'm just showing you this so you can see it, because everything that I'm showing here has evidence to back it up. And in this document, the court is actually saying this is a matter which we have discussed throughout the case. It was addressed initially, I believe, by Mr. Tynan. Tynan was my attorney, John Tynan. He was my attorney. And he did somewhat. I mean, I don't even think that he did a good job. He just did something. He just touched the surface. Now, the judge continues to say, I have seen the book, I'm sorry. He said, I haven't seen the book. And the judge says, if you wish, he's talking to the DA, if you wish to argue it, I will excuse the jury and we will argue the point. This is in front of the jury. They're speaking about this book already, even though the book was not introduced. Now, the DA, Deborah Nathan, she actually tells the court or the judge, I don't know if this is a point that necessarily, let me explain what I'm trying to get through ADA Applebaum, Kenneth Applebaum, the one that started my whole case. And this book was actually planted in my van before my arrest, before conducting a lineup. And this is something that I believe, and I not that I believe, I know for sure, influence the DA to actually have the complainants of whoever was accusing, whoever they were accusing, to pick me on the lineup because they had already planted a book. They had already planted evidence in my van. So of course he's going to continue to lie in order to get a conviction. So he has to get the complainants to lie. So anyway, I'm going to continue here. And she goes, I am not attempting to offer the book now. What I am attempting to do is to bring it out or bring out the subject. There you go. Once again. And they continue talking about this book. And this is another piece of evidence. This is page 770 of the trial. The pages that I'm showing you here are pages of the actual trial. And in this page here, the court goes, all right, at this point, there has been mention made of a particular book which was recovered from defendant's van. And I instructed the people to make an offer of proof to demonstrate that the testimony is relevant and not conjectural. The DA goes, Deborah Nathan, Your Honor, the name of the book is Perfect Cover. Here is where the name comes in. Perfect Cover. Remember that book. And I'm going to tell you why. The name of the book, or they picked that particular book because of my background, because where I used to work. So the name of the book is Perfect Cover. And she says, I have read it. And the book is basically about an investigator by the name Tina Paris. They misspelled the name. The stenographer misspelled her name and put Tina Barris with a B. But it's Tina Paris with a P. Like I wrote here. See the name? Tina Paris. But they wrote Tina Barris because they were not sure that they got the name right. But if you try to Google for a book named Perfect Cover with an investigator named Tina Barris with a B, you're not going to find it. But if you Google or go into any one of those sources and Google that you're trying to find a book named Perfect Cover with an investigator named Tina Paris with a P, Paris, you're gonna see what's gonna come up. And this book is a 1994 book. And I'm gonna show you when they planted the book in my van, they took these pictures. I don't know if you can see these pictures clear enough for you to actually view what the book is, but this is the book right here. See, I put here the book, and the book looks white. This is the console of my van. And if you notice, the book is here sticking out. And this is exactly what she's saying. She's saying to the court that the book is sticking out. I'm going to show you in a minute. See, this is another one for the sake of clarity, for you to view how the book looks and that the book was sticking out, just like the DA actually said. This is another view of my van. Wait a minute. It's kind of funny the way they did this. But anyway, that's it. That's the view right there. I think it goes this way, if I'm not mistaken. There you go. Okay, this is better. Another picture. This is another picture. See it? That's the book. That's my van. Boom. You see? The book that they planted and then fabricated the evidence. Now, this is where she says that the book was sticking out. Just think about the pictures that I show you with the book. This is page 771 of the trial. You can screenshot it. You can do whatever you want to prove that what I'm telling you here are facts, no lies. Now she goes, this is the prosecutor, ADA Deborah Nathan. Much of it, she's talking about the book and the story in the book. And she said, the book is basically happens, much of it happens in Queens County. Queens County. She was very specific, Queens County. And one of the, I was charged and convicted of essaying a young lady. And I just want to make it clear now. I don't want you to be prejudiced or try to feel that you shouldn't listen to this video because of the charges that I was convicted of. Because you know that many cases they have charged people with horrible crimes, and then later they learn that they didn't do it. And this is what I'm trying to prove here. And now she says one of the essays is of a Queens County college girl. She's talking about the book here. This is the story that she's giving the judge and the court in front of me and in front of my attorney about this book. That the book happens to be in Queens County, or the crimes happens to be in Queens County. And the first crime that she actually brings up is about a Queens College student, a young woman, and all of the victims of the perpetrator in the book, of the criminal in the book, are young women, just as in this case, just as in my case. She's saying that the book is actually the same as my case. The story in the book is actually the same as in my case. Now she's going on to say she is essay in Queens County at gunpoint, and the criminal, his quote unquote perfect cover is the fact that he is a police officer. Now I'm going to tell you this, and like I said before, don't let this dissuade you to look on the list of the cases or the list of the prosecutors that may be one of them may be the one who prosecuted your case, or maybe your families can actually look into it, because I didn't show you the list. But let me show you something here. I have to show you this again because it's important to me and it's important to you. This is the list of the prosecutors, just because you need to have the names. And if you recognize any of those names on that list, you're going to find that it's going to help you. Because, and this is why they don't want you to know, because once you know any one of those names, and if in the event one of those prosecutors actually prosecute your case and you were convicted, being an innocent man or wrongfully convicted, what's going to happen is that you will challenge everything in that case, and they don't want you to do that. This is why they don't want you to find out about this, and they have gone all the way to the United States courts in order to try to keep this away from the public view. So I'm going to continue here, and I'm going to repeat what she says. And his quote unquote perfect cover is the fact that he is a police officer. The book, once again, I repeat, the name is Perfect Cover. The book was recovered in the defendant's van, in my van, she's saying. Now not in the back, not in the back seat, but in the front. And when I tell you in the front, I mean the driver's wheel. This is what she's saying, the driver's wheel, right? The driver's wheel. You see where it is? This is what she's saying. The driver's wheel is right here, she's pointing to the judge from this picture. I mean, the driver's wheel is right here. And right next to it, right next to the driver's wheel, you can see it in one of the photos. This is one of the photos. You see the book right there? That's the book. Is the book. And it's sort of sticking out. Boom. Sort of sticking out. Now she continues, and I'm skipping some lines because I don't want to take this too long, but it's going to take a little bit anyway. And I ask you, please, to bear with me. But it's my argument, Judge, that this book with this subject matter is so specific as to the almost, I would say, identical to the facts in this case. In my case, she's telling the court that this book is so specific. The story in the book that she's telling the court is so specific as to the facts in my case. There is no way that this is remote or is conjectural. Yeah? Hallelujah. Thank God. Now, she goes to another page in this book. I'm just skipping pages because then I will be here all day. And I don't think you have that time. But please, for those who actually care about your wrongful convictions and you were innocent and they planted evidence or they lied about something, please, I'd like you to pay attention because God sometimes uses people that you actually say, well, the unlikely person that I would actually get this information from, God used. And I am that unlikely person because of my background. And a lot of times people, they actually fail to use something that is so useful to help them because they have some prejudice and some bias. And this is why I plead with you to put your bias to the side, leave that outside the door, and try to pay attention to what I'm saying here because this is pertaining to my case. And the same way I'm showing this, maybe you can make a video. Maybe you can come up with something, some way, somehow, or a family member can make a video showing the facts of your case to try to get your conviction actually overturned or get a dismissal of your conviction. Now, she continues to say that the man in the book, this is talking about the book, and I'm sorry, this is the court, and she's correcting the court because she said, oh, Your Honor, sorry, this is not correct. He's not the victim. He orders the victims with a service revolver. She says, or the court says, oh, he orders the victims with a service revolver. And Nathan, prosecutor, and I want you to remember this name, Deborah Nathan. That's the AVA who's being supervised by Kenneth Applebaum. He put this lady to actually prosecute the case under his supervision because he wanted to testify against me. And that's what happened. And she wanted to introduce the book while he was testifying because I guess she thought that that would be preferable. Anyway, let me just not, I'm going too far anyway, but let me just continue to read what was in front of me. And she says, no, he drives around in his own private car. Then he picks out his victims. And then the court says, all right, okay. In many ways, the material in this book is pretty much fact specific. Can you listen? Are you listening to this? Fact specific to this case. There are certain striking similarities, and the people are seeking to offer in as circumstance evidence. That's how he says it. Circumstance. He didn't say circumstantial. Of the defendant's identity as to the perpetrator of the crime. They're trying to bring this book out, or in other words, they're trying to bring this book out just to convince the jury that since the book was found in my van, even though they planted the book and they fabricated the story in the book because that's not what happened in the book, they trying to convince the jury that the simple fact that they found this book in my van with such a story is very curious that they found this book in my van, and now if I claim that I'm innocent, they're going to say, well, I don't think so because they found this book in your van. But they lied about the story in the book. They misled the court. They fabricated the whole story. And this is what I'm bringing out in this video here to you. And this is another page. I'm putting the pages here. Sometimes I'm going to do it twice just to show you the highlights of the information of the book, because I'm concentrating this on the book because the book was mentioned so many times. They didn't mention any other evidence. They mentioned this book so many times throughout the case. The book wasn't even shown in front of the jury. They probably mentioned it once lightly on the surface in front of the jury, but then the jury was dismissed and they came into discussion between my attorney and the DA about the book. Now, the DA she's accusing me about having this book. And she says that this defendant possessed this book in the van where he commits, I'm committing crimes, she's saying. Not in the house, but in his van where he commits these crimes. I think is very relevant and is very probative. And I should be permitted. She's saying I should be permitted. It is my argument to put it into evidence. What I'm seeking to elicit from ADA Applebaum, this is Applebaum was sitting here waiting. This is the DA. Again, I repeat myself, and I might have to repeat myself so you don't forget it. That DA Applebaum was the one that initiated the investigation. He had the case. And he was the one that planted the book. And I'm going to show you in this page here, I'm going to show you that he had a chance. He had opportunity because he went to my house first to see the van, to view my personal vehicle. And he went inside and put this book in my van. And he, without remorse, without regards, I wasn't even arrested yet. They asked me to come to the 112 precinct to, or for questioning, for an investigation. But they didn't give me all the details about the investigation. They basically said, listen, you want to come to the 112 precinct? We do an investigation. You'll be home in no time. But now the DA Applebaum, who planted this book, like I said, he actually assigned one of the prosecutors that he supervised to do the trial, to prosecute the trial, so he can actually sit. And this is, she continues to say this, and I'm sorry if I'm getting you a little confused. I don't want you to confuse yourself, or I don't want you to be confused. Comprende? All right. She says, what I was seeking to elicit from ADA Applebaum, he too, this is Applebaum. She said before, I don't know if you remember this, but she said before that she read the book. Now she goes, he too, Applebaum, read this book, and I was seeking to get out the testimony of what is about subject to connection. This is how they wrote it. Through the next witness, who actually would be able to put the book into evidence, who was present when it was recovered. He was present when it was recovered. Right? Now, my attorney objected to this. Mr. Tynan, John Tynan, was my defense attorney, and he objected to this. And he says, what's in this book would be far outweighed by the prejudicial, effect it would have on my client. And he said, it's quite clear that this is asking the jury to make some type of propensity connection between this book and my client. I'm going to show you that again, so you can see that I am not lying here. You can do whatever you want. You can screenshot it for your own benefit. And what is funny about this is that the book was actually voucher, or was actually put into evidence by a sergeant named Rafael Garcia. Rafael Garcia or Rafael, like we say in Spanish, Rafael Garcia, he put the book into evidence himself. But what happens is that they didn't use Rafael Garcia to say anything about the book, to give a testimony about the book. Rafael Garcia was the one that vouched the book. He wrote the receipt about the book. He took the book as evidence. How come they never called Rafael Garcia, Sergeant Rafael Garcia, to testify about the book? His name is right on the receipt. This is the receipt. This is the receipt. You see, it has the date on it, January 9th of 1998. The book is right there, perfect cover on line, what, line 2, if you see it. And his name is Rafael Garcia. I highlighted that information. And my name is here. And I'm sorry that I didn't give you anything about my name. My name is Jose Velasquez. Jose Velasquez. You see? There goes my name, Jose Velasquez. That's my name. And look, I just try to enlarge a little bit about this. This is Rafael Garcia. This is the same receipt that I showed you before. See? There you go. This is the same receipt, and it has the name of the book. You see what it says? Paperback book, right? Name, perfect cover. Rafael Garcia didn't testify about the book. How come they didn't use him? My understanding about why they didn't use Rafael Garcia is because I guess they thought that the jury would actually believe an ADA or a prosecutor more than a police officer. So they actually concocted this plan in order to say, you know what, or Applebaum felt that it was necessary for him to put another DA to prosecute the case. And he actually assigned Deborah Nathan the case. And he didn't take the case because he wanted to testify. I guess by testifying about the book himself, he will have more weight in the eyes of the jury. It will be more believable. And this is, again, another page with Nathan speaking about the picture. She's showing this picture, the picture that I showed you before. She's showing it to Mr. Kenneth Applebaum, ADA Kenneth Applebaum. And I'm going to read it first, and then I'm going to show you. I asked the witness to be shown 7B. And then she asked, ADA Applebaum, you are now looking at 7B in evidence. Do you recognize that? And then he says, it appears to be the defendant's van, my van, that I saw on January 9th, 1998. January 9th, 1998. Isn't that a coincidence? Look at the voucher. What's the date on the voucher? January 9, 1998. And he says, this is the van. It appears to be the defendant's van that I saw on January 9, 1998, outside his house and again at the Whitestone Pound on December 18, 1998. He went twice to see my van for both of them. Then she asks again, are you familiar with a book? Look, she's trying to throw that in there. A book by the name Perfect Cover. While he is testifying, although listen, before this, she made an agreement. She had agreed with the court and my attorney not to introduce the book because they said, listen, if I testify, they didn't want me to testify. And my attorney said, please do not testify or they're going to introduce the book. And the book, I mean, believe me, if the story in the book was the same thing that the DA was saying here, listen, I'm done because this is what they were charging me with. They charged me with driving in my personal car, picking up women at gunpoint, right? Kidnapping them at gunpoint and essaying them in my vehicle. This is what they claim, right? So they had to bring the book. The story in the book has to match with all the charges that they bringing up against me. It's sad that we have people in power, prosecutors, who went to college. They went to college. You went to law school, and this is how you handle cases? By lying, fabricating, misleading the court, misleading the jury, misleading the newspapers. This is how you operate. You should be ashamed of yourself. And I know they don't want their children to know. And their parents, if you pay for this guy, your father and your mother pay for you to go to college and do this, you should be ashamed of yourself. Now she goes, and we're going to read that again. Are you familiar with the book named Perfect Cover? Of course, my attorney, he objected. He said, objection, Your Honor. Now I'm going to show you. So you see that I'm not lying. This is page 767 of the trial. You see it? This is what they are saying. And this is the DA trying again to bring the book out. She's forcing this book out. She's trying to force it in front of the judge. Judge, I want this book. I want this book. The thing that she's not telling the court. And I'm going to show you at the end. I'm going to show you the front of the book, and I'm going to show you the back of the book, the summary of the back of the book to show you. You can read the book yourself because you're going to have the year, you're going to have the name, you're going to have the actual, you're going to have one of the main investigator in the case named Tina Paris. You're going to have that. With that alone, you can actually go through Amazon or you can go through eBay, Google, and find the book, and you can purchase the book for yourself and read the book. Read the book. If you don't believe me, read the book. And you're going to see that the book is not about someone going around or driving around in his personal car in Queens County, New York, specifically, like she says, in Queens County, New York, kidnapping young women at gunpoint and essaying them. The book is not about that. So why you had to lie about the book? And I'm going to explain to you why I never requested to get this book in a few minutes. Please give me time. Now, this is from the court. This is page 742, and I'm going to read it. I have to read it. The court is saying that you may proceed. Now it goes, at this time, I was the assistant DA. This is Applebound talking about at the time, right? He was the assistant DA. He's talking about a letter here that I sent to him. Allegedly, I sent a letter to him that I never signed. It wasn't signed. It wasn't a letter that was signed. They didn't do any DNA on the letter. They didn't try to get any fingerprints of the letter. And my attorney actually argued that why they didn't do that. You know what? How can we tell that this letter came from my client? The letter came from me. It's unsigned. It's typewritten, and they never conducted any DNA tests or fingerprint tests. So now, at this time, I was the assistant. He said, this is Applebound. This is page 742, like I said. I was the DA handling this case, and it made reference to the case and asked me certain questions about the case. This is talking about the letter that I'm making reference on the letter about the case and asking questions about the case. But this is him actually admitting that he was the DA, because I don't want you to have any doubt that this guy was the actual DA in my case. See the page number and you see what I highlighted. He was the DA in my case. And he had opportunity to plant the book and later conspire, like I said, with ADA Deborah Nathan to lie, intentionally or blatantly lie in front of the court about the contents of the book. They lied about the story in the book. They said something that was not in the book in order to prejudice me, inflame the passions of the jury, because they actually disclosed this and was published in the newspapers. I'm going to show you the newspaper clippings. I believe I got them here. And I'm going to show you those clippings when they actually speak about the book. The year of the book was very specific. But I'm going to continue to go with these pages here because I'm trying to paint a picture here. This is 714 now, page 714. And this is her, Deborah Nathan, again. She's talking to Applebaum, right? And she's talking to him, and then she says, "What do you do for a living?" He says, "I am an assistant DA here in Queens County." And then she goes and asks, "Mr. Applebaum, we know one another, correct?" And he answers, his reply is, "Yes, we do. We work together." Just like they conspired together to lie about this book in my case. "And you are my boss." She says, "You are my boss." He supervises her. He's the supervisor. So he can actually say, "You know what? I want you to take the case." And I sit and we lied about the book. Is that correct? And he replies in the affirmative. He says, "That is right." Later, he asks him, "How long do you have, or how long have you been working as a DA?" And he says, 15 years. Boom. This is what I'm trying to show you. And one thing that I just came to mind is that this guy, I'm talking about ADA Kenneth Applebaum, he has been doing this since 1996 because in the case, for the cases that came out in his, I'm trying to find it here now again. But anyway, you can look it up. Just try to find or grievance complaint against Kenneth Applebaum, Queens County DA Kenneth Applebaum, grievance complaint. And believe me, you're going to see that he was doing this since 1980, in 1996. I'm sorry, 1996. And that was before my case. That was way before, believe me, I went to trial. I went to trial in 2000, May of 2000. I went to trial. And I was convicted. I was convicted and I served 20 years. But I didn't give up. And I knew that I had to come home in order to try to fight this case because in prison, you cannot fight a case. Believe me, the courts will not listen to you. The courts will not try to help you because I asked to get this book on my appeal. I asked to get this book. Not on direct appeal because they didn't want me to use my attorney. They didn't want me to use that. My appeal attorney didn't want me to actually request this book on the appeal itself, but I tried to use a collateral motion in order to request the book. They never gave it to me. I wanted to get fingerprints from the book because if the book says what the prosecutor is telling the court that it says, then we have problems. But now the only way that I can prove that the book was not mine is to get fingerprints. Through getting fingerprints, I can get, or DNA, I can actually prove that the book was not mine because my fingerprints or my DNA will not be on the book. And that would be something very suspicious and will actually get a judge to discredit what they said about the book. But they never gave it to me, of course. And I didn't think about buying the book at that moment because if I was to buy the book, and this is the story that he has in the book, like she described to the court, there's no use for me. The only way I can actually prove it is to get fingerprints or DNA. I got to get the actual book that they had, the book that they brought into the court. I couldn't actually do anything unless I get fingerprints. So I thought that it was a waste of time for me to buy the book or have a family member buy the book, even though it never crossed my mind to buy the book. I just wanted to get the actual book. Anyway, this is Applebaum, again, replying to some questioning by ADA Nathan. And he says, "Oh, okay. She asks, upon arriving at the defendant's house, what happened?" And he replies, "Parked my car, ADA Mason and I got out, walked over to the van. This is I believe, ADA Paul Mason. Paul Mason doesn't work in the Queens County DA's office anymore. He left. He went somewhere else in 2001. I actually researched his background, and he went to another. I believe he works for real estate as an attorney. But ADA Mason, I believe his name is Paul Mason, went there with Kenneth Applebaum to view my van. And I'm going to read this again. He parked my car. ADA Mason and I got out, walked over to the van, and then I believe a detective from Internal Affairs came up to me, asked me who I was. I identified myself. He identified himself to me, and he allowed me to take a look at the van. Boom, opportunity, a chance to plan this book. Oh, God. And did he take a look at the van? I'm sorry. And did you take a look at the van? He says, I did. And this happened between the hours of, he says, probably between 7, 8 o'clock. I was already at the precinct waiting for the DA to conduct the lineup because he wanted to conduct the lineup himself. And this is when he says exactly what I'm telling you here. On this page 717, this is the trial record. These are the trial minutes or the transcripts from the actual case, the actual trial in this case. Now he says, I went over to the 112 precinct, right, on Yellowstone Boulevard and Austin Street as a result of receiving that notification. He says that he was notified that they had made an arrest in this case, and I was writing that case, and I went over to the precinct to sort of conduct the investigation along with the detectives and to see what I could do to enhance the case, embellish the case like they did. And this is page 717. On the top of these pages, just to point something out to you, you see the name of the person who's testifying. And I hope that you go back and you look at the pages and you see on top has his name on it, Kenneth Applebaum. He's the one testifying here. And he's saying that he wants to go and, what did I say? Enhance the case. He wants to enhance the case, of course. He wants to fabricate some evidence. He wants to influence the complainants to say that that's the man. I want you to pick him out, just like he did before. Remember what I showed you before? Remember what I showed you before? That I showed you that picture of him, and he says that he coached a 16-year-old to lie. You see that? He coached a 16-year-old to lie. See that? And this is Kenneth Applebaum. You see the name on top? Kenneth Applebaum. Now, when he gets to the precinct, on page 719, he says, so I told the detectives that I wanted to run lineups. He said, I want to run the lineups. The DA wants to run the lineups on the case. And he continues, the other DA name is Peter. Oh, I'm sorry. I said Paul. What is Peter Mason? We drove to the defendant's residence where I was told there were detectives keeping an eye on his van. And I wanted to look at it. He wanted to look at my van. ¿Comprende? This is all so funny. Now, one thing that I want to mention here, that I should mention to you, is that my case now is in the hands of the New York Legal Aid Society, and they are reviewing my case. They are reviewing the facts of my case. This thing here was never brought up in my case about the lie about this book, that they planted a book, that they fabricated the evidence, that they conspired to lie about the original or the true story in the book, that they misled the court, that they actually misled the jury misled the newspapers. They lied to the newspapers. The newspapers will put whatever you tell them to put. You paying them to put to write something, and they're gonna write it. We know about the fake media now, right? They put whatever you tell them. If you tell them whatever you want to tell them, they're gonna write it, and they're going to go along with this because they know this is something that they can use to prejudice the defendant. They prejudice defendants. They prejudice people accused of crimes even before they go to trial. So the prosecutors know how to manipulate the newspapers. They know how to manipulate the media. They know how to use this tool in order to actually get people to believe that we have the actual criminal. This is the man that we have. This is him. So before they even actually select a jury in a case, all this information is out there. So the jury, you think nobody's going to read it? You think nobody's going to see it? Especially now that we have so many resources, to get information. It's so quick to get information. In seconds, we get information about everything all over the world. So now they use all that to actually prejudice me before the jury. So my case, like I said anyway, is in the hands of the Legal Aid Society Wrongful Conviction Unit. And I originally had a young lady named Jasmine Diaz. She was the paralegal handling my case, just receiving and going through my documents and stuff like that. And now you see on Tuesday, April 15, this is actually April 17, 2024. She actually told me that she was going out. And these are the names of the people that she recommend I get in touch with if I had anything that I was going to send to them. You see, these are their emails. Just in case somebody wants to contact the Legal Aid Society and request information or I'm just giving you this extra information so you can use it for whatever reason you want. Maybe you can actually write try to get the Legal Aid Society Wrongful Conviction Unit or any one of those wrongful convictions units in order to help you get your conviction overturned or get your indictment dismissed. And I just show you that for your information only. See, this is the thing about Peter Mason. Peter Mason, who was with the DA. See, this is where he's working now. I don't know if that's his picture with a child. I mean, that looks like an old picture because just like myself, they got to have gray hair. But just to show you, this is the same guy that used to work with the DA. Look, Assistant District Attorney, Queens County, New York, 1997 to December of 2001. This is the same DA that worked in my case. And this is Deborah Nathan. Deborah Nathan. I found out that Deborah Nathan is working now for the Department of Taxation. She also left in 2001. Deborah Nathan is working for the Department of Taxation. Department of Taxation, New York State Department of Taxation. Do you know Deborah Nathan? Do you know that she lied in my case to get me convicted? She lied about a book. And this is the lawyer that you have working for you, New York State Department of Taxation. Look into her record and find out what she has done because maybe she's not telling you everything about herself. Now, this is what this thing is going to get a little hot for you guys because what I'm showing you, because you know what? I'm innocent. I have to show you this. I have to be transparent. I have to be clear with everything that I'm showing you here because this is coming out of the Newsday on Tuesday, May 2nd. I went to trial on May 2000. So, of course, it is convenient to the DA to publish something out there to get someone to see it. Hopefully, the jury's family will see it, the complainant will see it, because I don't think the DA told the jury or told the complainants or told the newspapers the true story behind the book. She just made it up, and they swallow this story or this lie. But here they talking about me going to trial, and they talking about the book, and the year is right here. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to back it up a little. Boom. Ex-cop trial in sex assault. Let's keep it plain and simple. Now there she goes. There it is. 1994 book name perfect cover was recovered from his van. 1994 book. And this is who? Look, 1994 book. Perfect cover. They telling the newspapers about the book, and the newspapers, well, they're getting paid. They're going to publish this. And this is a page that I enlarged of the story on that piece of newspaper of May 2000, second, before my trial. And then we go on here. This is from May 17. May 17, 1994 book name perfect cover. The same thing. See what I'm saying? And one was what? The Newsday. And the other one is, I'm sorry. The other one was Newsday also. And this is what I enlarged from that Newsday article. You see? 1994. A copy of the 1994 book named Perfect Cover. You see it? The newspapers publishing lies and more lies. The fake media. You know, you heard about the fake media today, right? And this is another article by this is the Daily News, June 6th. Look, Daily News, June 6th. They say that I was convicted of 22 years, but I wasn't. Look, I was convicted of 20 years. It's almost the same thing. But look here. There you go. There you go. There you go. The book, perfect cover. The Daily News, June 6th, 2000. You can Google this. You can Google all this information about, if you can actually Google about a cop named Jose Velasquez, convicted in 2000 in Queens County, you're going to find that all these newspapers articles will show up. These are the originals. Now they're going to show you whatever they want to show you in those. They're going to show you clippings from information. They're not going to have the original. I have the originals. By the grace of God, and I thank God, because God is my witness, by the grace of God, my family saved the original article, and I made these copies. You see? This is the same thing that I just showed you. See that? Book called Perfect Cover. And look who's talking about this book. Look. Assistant District Attorney Deborah Nathan. Assistant District Attorney Deborah Nathan. And then after my conviction, we have here the New York Post. Look at the New York Post, what they said. Look, this is the New York Post. Look what they're saying. How a book marked, sounds very awful. A thriller gave him the blueprint for his crimes. Look, you can actually screenshot it and enlarge it. And I'm going to read what it says here. This is by Christopher Francescani, published in June 11th, 2000. I was already convicted. In here, he says, former New York City cop Jose Velasquez, went strictly by the book, allegedly. But the book he was going by when he was arrested for abducting and sodomizing a 15-year-old Queens County school girl wasn't the New York PD patrol guy. It was Perfect Cover, a mystery thriller about a sinister rapist. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that? Who uses his job as a cop as the perfect cover for his secret life, hunting down young women to attack. Wow. They paint a real awful picture of me. In the book, the rapist cop, oh, did I say that again? I'm sorry. Prowls the streets of Queens, Brooklyn, and Manhattan in his own car. This is what's happening in the book. abducting young girls at gunpoint. Like somebody says, I forgot what somebody says, a shoot you at gunpoint with his service robot and brutally assailing them. In real life, Mr. Velasquez, a Manhattan housing cop. They made sure they threw that in there. Housing cop, not NYPD. Housing cop. Look, housing cop. See it? Housing is what? New York City housing. Nice shot. New York City housing. You see what I'm saying? The NYPD has prejudice against housing. And that was back in the days when the NYPD thought they were the elite. And since they were the elite, housing police were only what? Security guards, and the subway cops were security guards. But the NYPD out there patrolling the city of New York were the elite. They were the best. And they had prejudice against housing. So of course they came after me to try to hurt me real bad. And I'm gonna say it again. Sergeant Garcia was the one that arrested me. I mean, he took the case. He basically they gave it to him, and he never testified about the book. And he found the book himself. He never testified about the book. This is the man that wrote the receipt about the book. I mean, didn't he have something to say about the book? I mean, his testimony was not good enough. But D.A. Applebaum, complicitly with Deborah Nathan, who lied about the contents of the book, she was used by Applebaum. Applebaum, he's a criminal, and he had no remorse. I mean, how shameful it is to try to drag one of your uh, 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 you know co ADAs to lie for you. For what? It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Now, the DA here is where she cements. I'm talking about Miss Deborah Nathan. She cements the story, and she's telling parole. This is on my sentencing day, and I'm just giving you this page because I mean you can find this. This is all over the place. I mean, my case is public information, and right now you could find everything about this. Now, she actually here, like I said, cemented the story about the book, and she's trying to tell it to the court on my sentencing day because she wants to get the maximum possible sentence against me. And now she's directing the book to future parole commissioners, New York State parole commissioners, and she's addressing them specifically in this page to tell them, listen, this man had a book in his van and this is what he was doing, and you should not let him go when he goes before you on his parole hearing. Give him the max. So she's actually trying to persuade parole, lying to parole officers about what I did or what I didn't do because I didn't do anything. I'm still innocent, right? And now this proves my innocence, right? Look, this is what she's saying. This is page 10 of the sentencing minutes. I mean, just call the Legally Society. Ask them about Mr. Velasquez. Say, Mr. Velasquez, indictment number 3175, Queens County, New York. Do you have his case? Legally Society, please. Can we see his case? Can we see the documents in his case? Because he's talking about this book that they actually fabricated a story about a book, and they planted the book in his van and they lied, misled. And this is an affront to the court. This is offensive. I mean, this is why you go to law school. But look, I'm going to read it. I'm going to read something about this. Sometimes review, this is saying, sometimes review or rare or are often review at parole hearings, right? Anybody who knows what a parole hearing is the process when you go before a few parole commissioners and you give them a story and they tell you their side of the story, what they believe you did, or you tell them you to deny it, and you can actually admit it or whatever the case may be. Some people, innocent people, admit sometimes that they did something because they want the parole to let them go, and this is what happens in a lot of cases. you'd rather be home. You'd rather be home and fight your case from home because it's hard to fight from prison. I mean, it's hard to send a letter out. They have to go through your letters. They have to go through everything, and it's not easy. But anyway, I'm going to repeat this again. Sometimes review or are often review at parole hearings. The book that I am talking about that I would like the board to be aware of is called Perfect Cover. Here we go again with the perfect cover. What the book is a primer or a sort of guide that I would suggest. She is suggesting that this defendant use in committing his acts. The book is about a police officer in Queens County who drives around, who picks his victims off the streets, who abducts them at gunpoint or takes them at gunpoint and then subsequently essays them. And this my position, this is her position, quote unquote, that that's exactly what this defendant was doing. And the fact that he denies his guilt is, I think, just ludicrous. And I ask you, ADA Deborah Nathan, are you going to deny that you lied about this book? Are you going to deny that this is what you told the court about the book? Are you going to deny that you know that Kenneth Applebaum planted the book? He had opportunity, and you wanted to use him to testify about the book. You try to force the court to introduce this book, but the court didn't allow you to introduce it. I don't know. I guess the court or the judge actually had his suspicions, or I guess I don't know. I don't know how much the court knew about this book. I don't know because the court didn't say it. And then she's talking about another complainant right here. I mean, I'm going to show you the page. And then she goes, this defendant who only offers excuses and does not take responsibility, it is my position, Judge, that he deserves to serve the maximum length of his incarceration, and that's 25 years. And Your Honor, that is what I'm asking you to impose. You see what they do? They wrongfully convict people. They lie, they mislead, they hide evidence, so they call it withholding of evidence, and that's against what? Your constitutional rights. They violated every constitutional right in my case, and they don't care. And then they say, or they want you when they violate your rights. They want you to, or they want the defendants or the accused to serve at least 20 to 30 or life in prison because it's very hard to prove your case after 20, 25, 30, 40 years because the information might not be there. They get rid of everything after all that time. You're not going to have the witnesses. You're not going to have anything in writing that's going to prove that you or you're going to be able to use it. I'm sorry, you're going to be able to use in order to prove that you are innocent. It's very hard. It's very hard to find something. But thank God, who doesn't lie, who made a promise that he will actually complete in me what he started from the beginning, who helped me to get this. And I'm going to show you this. This is her telling the judge. You see, this is page 10. I'm showing you this again so you can see it. You can actually screenshot it. I don't want you to miss anything. Read it line by line, line by line. That's how you read it. And the thing is that, I tried to get this book, like I said, and I couldn't get it because the book that they had, they never, I mean, they weren't willing to give it to me because they know that if I get fingerprints and I get DNA, that will show right away that the book actually doesn't belong to me. And they try to frame me more. I'm not going to stop here because, I got to say this. These people try to frame me more since they didn't have anything and they were lying about the book. They were misleading. They even use the complainant. They use one complainant, one main complainant to get a conviction. They had another young lady, but they didn't use her testimony as much. But this one complainant who went to the hospital and lied at the hospital, I'm sorry. She told the hospital one story, and then when she went to court, she changed the story conveniently. Or the DA said, no, I want you to say this because this fits my narrative of the case, or this fits the crime that I want the judge to find this guy guilty of. So I want you to say this, say that he did this, because on the actual medical records, which my attorney never used, he never used them to try to challenge uh, what the accuser was saying about me. And they used somebody else, a person named Veronica Joseph. Veronica Joseph, they used another lady that was following me in the trains. She was following me in the trains, in a J train. And then she lied about me exposing myself just to get more ammunition against me. And this is what the DA said. The reason why I'm mentioning this name, Veronica Joseph, is because we're going to find out who Veronica Joseph is. And I know she's connected either to the DA or she's connected to someone that was in this case in order to lie more about me. And I'm telling you this because it's important that I bring this up, because they might say, oh, look, but he was convicted of something else. This is how they are, vicious criminals. And this is what they did. Now, this is the front page of the book. You see the book? This is the white cover. They have two different covers. They have one actually published in the United States of America, and this is from the UK. And this is the copy that they have. This is why the book in the van looks white. This is why the book, because when I had the other book, it has a blue cover. I mean, I should have brought it with me to show you, but I'm sorry. I apologize. But anyway, I wanted you to see this one because this is the one that they use, the white cover. And I just found out not too long ago through Amazon. This I found through Amazon that they have this other one. It's the same book published in 1994 by Linda Chase and Joyce St. George. You see the names here? Linda Chase and Joyce St. George. Perfect cover. See, 1994. This is 1994. Perfect cover. It was published in 1994. This is the same book she was talking about. She gave information about the book, what details about the book. She gave, let me see, four things about the book. The year, 1994, the title, perfect cover. She also gave the name of the main investigator, Tina Paris, and she said a young girl at Queens College was SA. And that's in the book. The name of the book, perfect cover, published in 1994. Tina Paris happens to be in the book. Tina Paris, investigator Tina Paris. And there was someone actually essay at a Queens College, but she was not picked while somebody was driving around looking for victims and kidnapped them at gunpoint. This is different. They had the name of the, or they actually had the name of the so-called bad boy who essayed this lady. They have it in the book, and they didn't say that he was an off-duty cop, and they didn't say that he was someone driving around looking for people, because they have the name here, and the name that they use is Pretty Boy. They claim that Pretty Boy R, I'm just going to leave it with R, Pretty Boy R grabs the headlines. This is the case right after the Queen's girl was essay in the book. They gave the name Pretty Boy. He's a pretty boy, pretty boy. And this is what they are saying. This is actually the summary about the book right in the back of the book. You see it? Let me try to give you a better view. And you can see it there. See? This is from the back of the book. This is the United States book. And this says here, a gripping up to the minute look at the world of corrupt cops through a woman's eyes by a team composed of a writer and a former undercover investigator for the New York State Special Prosecutor's Office. Perfect Cover takes readers right onto the streets of New York in a riveting real life detail. Special investigator Tina Paris retains just enough of her Catholic upbringing to still believe in the mission. Something about the little guy and the integrity of the criminal justice system. Whether she's dolled up in a skimpy black dress to go undercover, to a mob infiltrated dinner, or out on the streets to find witnesses to a killing in a gambling den, Tina, Tina Paris, has her antenna out for predators at the same time that she gets a break on a case involving a killer cop on the loose in one of the city's roughest neighborhoods. A case with racial and political overtones. A pretty boy rapist, did I say that? I'm sorry, grabs the headlines as these two cases interject or intersect. The danger and suspense in Perfect Cover rise to a pulse pounding pitch. Perfect Cover is a gripping tale of how justice can be compromised and instincts betrayed. Investigator Tina Paris is a genuine heroine, and Perfect Cover is a page turner with a surefire surprise ending. It's a perfect read. Okay? 1994, Perfect Cover. And this is what the book is about. It's not about, like the DA said, about an off duty police officer who's driving around in his personal car, kidnapping young women at gunpoint to essay them in in his own car. And this is not a laughing matter. I just trying to bring some humor into this because I suffer a lot. 20 years. I served 20 years, and I know they wanted me dead. These people. I'm talking about the DAs and whoever did this to me. The people behind this. They wanted me dead. Believe me. And I'm making this video here. It's kind of long, and I'm sorry that I had to take all this time, but it's important that I do this for my sake and for your sake. Those who have been wrongfully convicted. Right now, I'm going to ask you: Is was this an impartial trial? Right? This was not an impartial trial. Everybody that knew me, they actually told them. I'm talking about the police department told them not to cooperate with me, not to help me, and they try to paint a real awful picture of me. I mean, here we see in the trial minutes, and it shows that Applebaum planted the book because he had opportunity and never used Sergeant Garcia to testify about the book. He preferred that he testify about the book himself because he was the one that went to see my van and he had the book. I don't think Sergeant Garcia was willing. I'm just saying, if Sergeant Garcia saw this man, Kenneth Applebaum, planting the book in the van, I don't think Sergeant Garcia was going to do this. I don't think so. I don't know. You got to ask him. Hopefully, we'll find him somewhere. Now, the only outcome in a case like this is to dismiss the indictment. Once you lie to a court, mislead the court about evidence, and you lied about evidence, information, like I show you in the first case in the beginning of the video, I show you a prosecutor who had to resign because she lied about some cases. She misled the court, and none of those cases said what she said the cases said. Right? Just like the book. She lied about that. And now I have some supporting cases. Supporting cases. Look, I'm gonna put this page up here because I want you to screenshot this page for your information. Because in Jovanovic versus New York City, the AVA from Manhattan, Linda Fairstein, was the one that prosecuted this case and had a cop lied about the case. Remember the title of the citation of this case, Jovanovic versus City of New York. And she actually leaked information to the newspapers, actually labeled this man as the cyber thin. This man, she claimed, that was actually trying to seduce women through the means of a computer. He was using computers back in the days. And she actually had a police officer lie about this man, and they used misleading evidence repeatedly, right? And this information was leaked to the newspapers. And he says that inflammatory and prejudicial pre-trial fabricated evidence remarks about Jovanovic to the press, the newspapers, and the continued leaks to the newspapers by the prosecutor, releasing select portions of the emails to demonize him, especially during the time prior to trial, which or with the knowledge that this is the most crucial period in a case. This case was of fraud, perjury, the suppression of evidence by police, or their conduct undertaken in bad faith by fabricating false and destroying evidence. All right? Now, in Frost versus New York City Police Department, as cited in Barnes versus City of New York, fabricated evidence influenced the decision to initiate prosecution was enough to state a due process claim, even though the alleged fabricated evidence was not introduced at trial. And they dismissed the indictment of Frost because the fabricated evidence doesn't have to be shown to the jury. Well, in this case, they mentioned it to the jury on the surface a couple of times. They said the name of the book, and they leaked the information about the book and the title of the book and the year of the book to the newspapers, with the hopes that the jury will get a hold of it, or someone in the family will actually read the book and say, listen, are you sitting on this case? Look what's going on here. This man actually had this book. They found it in the van, but they actually planted the book in my van. From the evidence that I show you here, I hope that it was enough or sufficient for you to believe that they planted the book, and the book is not what they claimed the book was. And I show you the year, 1994, title, perfect cover. The main character in the book, an investigator's name was Tina Paris. And you can actually just type that in and Google it, and you will come up with the book and read the book. Read the book. I'm willing to bet that you will not find what they said about the book. Because I want you to go back in this video and screenshot the information that I gave you, or that she gave. This is prosecutor Deborah Nathan. The story that she gave the court was a lie. The book does not say that. You made up a story about the book because it was convenient to you in order to get a conviction. And then you lied to parole. You, at my sentencing, you lied to parole. You said, oh, the book is about this, when it wasn't. All right? But thank you. Thank you, because now I know the truth. And everybody else knows the truth. Okay? Now, I'm saying this just in case. If you say that the book was not presented at trial, the book didn't have to be presented at trial. I mean, just take this information, screenshot it, and these are the cases that I have to support my what? Innocence. This thing was intentional. They actually intended to do this. And the confidence or the audacity that this prosecutor had to just go and plant a book, plant evidence in somebody's vehicle. So, I mean, what name can you use to describe a prosecutor who does something like this? What name? I mean, evil, demonic, Satan, the devil. I mean, you come with a book in hand to visit my house or view my van, and the book in hand, and in your mind you're already thinking about this. I'm going to plant this book here, and I'm going to influence people to lie about who they pick on the lineup, and we're going to get him arrested. And then I'm going to lie or conspire with another DA at trial, and we're going to lie about the story in the book to actually fabricate more information and get this guy convicted. And the book is going to be the main thing that we're going to use in order to get him convicted, because the other evidence was inconclusive. And this is what's going on here. This is what's going on here. This book was used to persuade everybody else or influence everybody else to believe that I was guilty. But I thank you and I pray and hope. I pray to God, if anybody here is a believer and believes in God, believes in Jesus Christ, I hope and pray that you do your due diligence and try to find information about you, because I gave you a list of prosecutors who actually committed criminal acts against innocent people. If you can find the list and if you can Google it, and again, I repeat the name, ADA Kenneth Applebaum, Queens County ADA Kenneth Applebaum grievance complaint. Just Google that and you will find his name. You will find what he did. This is the prosecutor in my case, or the one that initiated the investigation and planted the book and was going to testify about the book. And Deborah Nathan, she tried. She tried very hard with the other information that I gave you here. You can see that she tried very hard to get this judge to allow her to introduce the book, but he didn't. And that's the question that I have for the judge when I see him again, because we're going to see him again. But I thank you very much. Like I said, I hope and pray that this video was beneficial to many people, because they were trying to hide the information about the corrupt or criminal prosecutors on the list that I showed you. And they went all the way to the Southern District Court of New York to try to get the grievance committee to withhold this information from the public. But the judge said, no, we want the public to know the the things that the Queens County ADA's office is doing, or the Queens County DA's office is doing. We want everybody to know, because you are corrupted. And I leave this with you. Thank God for giving me a chance to do this. God bless you and have a wonderful day.